Now, I've had so much fun building the Turbo Lancer, however it's been in an accident and it's sort of not running right. So to replace it, I bought this.
I got a itch in my palm, my girl she know she the one. I put the ice on her hand, I put some ice on her arm. See me shining in the light.
In the last video, I bought this Mitsubishi Lancer. It's different from the other one because it has a big block. The 1.8 litre, which has 300 cc's more displacement than the old Lancer. We bought this car from Facebook Marketplace for $650. Now, of course, we are going to be turboing this thing. So today, we're going to start pulling apart the manifold and we're going to see what this 4G93 is capable of, because everyone says don't turbo the 1.5, but turbo this instead. Now, we do have some new parts on the way for the silver Lancer. However, we need to take some parts off the 4G15 black Lancer. So we're rolling it in the driveway and we're going to start taking it apart. Let's get started. This car is literally infested with redbacks. There are redback spiders everywhere, and when I was pulling the side skirts off, 2 big redbacks were hiding in there. They nearly got me.
Welcome to Australia. Stay away, be safe, boys.
The lights aren't even bolted on, man. Oh, watch out, Lucas! With the bumper removed, we were then able to jack up the car. Lucas then started taking up the downpipe off the turbo. All right, while I've been jacking up the car, Lucas has been taking off the downpipe.
Just shit falling apart at this point. It's been stripped of all it's worth. Reduce, reuse, recycle.
And then I got to work removing the exhaust, but I had to be very careful. Bro, this car is covered in redbacks.
Get a little...
Look at this. Nice. This is where I appreciated my past self for using V-bands for the entire exhaust, because obviously V-bands only require removing 1 nut, whereas typical flanges usually require 2 bolts or 3 bolts, and sometimes even 4. So this made removing the exhaust really easy. Pretty proud of this exhaust. We V-banded the entire thing. It's very easy to take apart and easy to put back on. Yeah, and it's lightweight.
Father and son exhaust.
Okay, the turbo is ready to come off now. It's a tight fit. You gotta like push the radiator, but there we go. That's 1 turbo off a Lamborghini. Now, while I was taking off the turbo on the black Lancer, Lucas was taking off the manifold on the silver Lancer. We obviously needed to take the manifold off on the silver Lancer because we're going to be putting a T25 flange on there so that we can mount the turbo, of course. But it was a little bit tricky for Lucas. How you going, Lucas?
Kang, you ready?
I'm ready.
Ugga dugga time.
Ugga dugga. Oh yeah.
Boom boom. We done.
Oh, that's just like a stud, and then you're taking it off the stud, yeah.
There's a couple of studs already. You guys. We just broke the 4th wall.
Okay, so we have now parted out the black Lancer. We've got the exhaust, the intercooler, the turbo, the intercooler pipes, and everything off because, yeah, there's no need for the Lancer to be turbo anymore because we are getting rid of it. Lucas went ahead and started removing the manifold on the 1.8 and we ran into a bit of a problem. We needed to take the rest of the exhaust off to get this manifold off. We had to leave the car on the street because I leave the R32 in the garage, and man, this thing is loud. Open headers. It sounds like a tractor. Anyway, we're going to continue removing parts off this car. I'm going to take the exhaust off, and I'm also going to take the headers off, and then we can start welding on the turbo flange. So it was now time to start working on the new Lancer. So I jacked the car up in the air, and then I started to remove the old exhaust. This was a little bit tricky, but luckily the old exhaust is held on together with bolts rather than your typical hanger. So instead of having to pry the old rubber off the hanger, all you need to do is remove bolts, and then the exhaust was removed. Yep. Very nice. Picked this up on eBay for about $20, and this is a T25 flange that we need to put on the bottom of this exhaust manifold to replace the standard flange. And we need to do this, of course, because the turbo has a T25 mount. We're not actually using this turbo, but yeah, there's the T25 flange. So what we're going to do is we're going to chop off the old flange and then start mocking up the turbo with this flange. We now have the standard flange chopped off the manifold. As you can see, this thing is huge and is useless, especially for a turbo. Now we have this chopped. We can now weld on our T25 flange. And as you can see, oh my God, that's hot. But the opening is very close. We just need to probably do a little bit more chopping, a little bit more smoothing, and then we'll be able to have this T25 welded on. When I originally chopped the flange off, there was a bit of a discrepancy between the T25 opening and of course the hole that we cut. So I've just chopped deeper and deeper. And obviously this keeps expanding. So the more that I chop off it, the bigger it'll be. So I'm just gonna basically smoothen it all out, maybe chop a little bit more so that we can get the T25 flange basically welded on there so the holes line up. But it's looking pretty good. So yeah, I'm just gonna get cleaning and get back to you in a second. We are making huge progress here. I've just mounted the manifold, well, like sort of just loosely put it on there. There is a limited amount of room in here, but it looks like we'll be able to fit everything. But just like the 1.5, looks like we're gonna have to remove one of these fans, the radiator fans. There's two fans on the radiator, one here and one here. And that never caused an issue on overheating on the 1.5 Mitsubishi Lancer. So we should be totally fine with the 1.8. I'm gonna remove this fan to make some more clearance, and then we should have more room for the turbo to be mounted. The only difficult part is gonna be the downpipe, which I don't know how I'm gonna do. That clears up a lot of room, wow. Got the manifold, got the T25 flange. I'm now gonna weld these together, just do some tack welds just in case I need to change something later, but let's weld this all together and see how we go. We've got the T25 flange welded onto the standard manifold now, just held on there with some tack welds, as you can see. And this should allow us to test fit the turbo to see if we can get the position right before we obviously weld everything together and make this one. Yeah, let's see what happens, man. The turbo now is essentially installed onto the manifold. Have a look at this. The turbo is now mounted. As you can see, it's on there. Not fully bolted on, but we'll be able to fix that in a second. But look at the position on this thing, guys. There is heaps of room. A little bit less room than the other car. Can't really complain. This is going to be a janky build that's on the budget. Look at that. Hell yeah. I've also made a list on the whiteboard on everything that we need to do to get this Lancer turboed. And it looks like we can cross off one thing, and that is mount the turbo, because that is done. The rest of the stuff is basically plumbing, so just making lines for the coolant, for the oil, the intercooler of course, the exhaust, the fuel pressure reg. That's a little bit different than the other stuff, but not that complicated. We do need to fit a thermofan, and we need to put the boost controller on and the wideband. Now guys, we of course were using the old turbo from the black Lancer to dummy up the manifold while we waited for our brand new turbo. Oh yeah. So we of course got ourselves a brand new T25 Max Heating Rods turbo. As you guys know, budget builds require budget parts. A lot of you guys actually ask me if these are any worth it or not. And yes, I would honestly buy one of these if I was building a budget car, because these are like $300. We're gonna be chucking this on in another video, but for now, I just wanna show you that we are gonna be running a brand new turbo on this setup, because it's a 1.8, it's a new motor, so new turbo, baby. Having the chicane toolkit to be able to store all my tools and just, quickly go back and forth between working on the car has been an absolute godsend. Chicane also have some of the best quality tools on the market. And of course, you can grab this tool set or like degreaser, cleaning products, and everything, of course, at your local Autobahn. So just wanted to take this time to say thank you to Autobahn, because they, of course, are the biggest sponsors of the channel. And yeah, without them, we wouldn't be doing stuff like this. So Autobahn is keeping the car community alive. Just took off the old downpipe flange right there. And as you can see, we've put it on just to sort of see what's happening, because obviously there's not a lot of room in here. And as you can see, there is not too much room from here to the AC pipe. So I've had to smack the AC pipe ever so slightly. This way we don't want to smack it too hard, otherwise then we're gonna have gas go everywhere. But it's looking very tight. I've got some pie cuts up here, but you can see if we get the 90 on there, there is not a lot of room. So we're gonna have to figure this out with pie cuts, I reckon. This is what the clearance is looking like underneath. You can see it's very close to the AC compressor. And that's why in the other car, I literally just deleted the AC compressor because it wasn't even regassed anyway, so the AC wasn't working. But on this car, the AC is indeed blowing nice and cool. So I don't want to delete the AC in this one. We're also having a problem with the internal wastegate. As you can see, again, there is not a lot of room for the gate to sit anywhere. So I'm gonna have to make like a custom bracket or something to hold the internal wastegate spring somewhere, probably around there. But other than that, the fitment of everything is looking pretty sweet. It's just gonna be very difficult because it's just so far down, whereas the other manifold that we had on the 1.5 was, you know, obviously a lot higher. Another problem that we're facing is there is nowhere to get oil to the turbo on this motor easily. So on the other motor, of course, we used a T-piece on the oil pressure switch. You know, there's like a sensor in the dash, and what triggers that oil light is a sensor going into the block where oil pushes on the sensor, and if there's no pressure on the sensor, then it sends a light signal. So this car does not have one of those by the looks of it. If it does, I can't find it. I'm gonna have to do some research, but I saw in Mike Lake's video where he turboed a 4G93 where he got the oil feed line from, and he used a sandwich plate on the oil filter. So we might go ahead and use that route and not bother running like an oil cooler because you probably don't need that, but just run the oil feed from the oil filter, but we don't have that part yet, so we're gonna have to order that. Anyway guys, I know it's a short video, but this is just an introduction to the Silver Lancer and what we're doing with it, of course. The $650 Lancer. Subscribe for part 2. It's gonna be a much longer video where we install the exhaust, the coolant lines, the oil feed, hopefully the fuel pressure regulator, and everything else. And we should have this thing almost ready for some boost. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.